welcome Lifespans class. This is week 11 and wanted to touch base and welcome you to late adulthood, which is our final stage of the lifespan as we have started from the newborn all the way progressing through to late adulthood. And this is a unique stage because it is becoming a more lengthy stage, which is good because of partially due to medical advancements and technology, scientific advancements. We are prolonging age and giving a more robust retirement and phasing into the late adulthood stages. So this is going beyond, 65-ish and through the end of life and end of life concerns. So because this section is 3 chapters, so we have chapters 17, 18, and 19, and due to the nature of adding in an extra chapter and the weight of that chapter being the death and dying, grief and loss chapter, we're going to have 2 weeks for this section. So there will not be a reflective paper due this week, Sunday by midnight, but there will be the following. So just wanted to make sure that you're aware of that there is a slight alteration in our schedule by allowing you to have an extra week for that. And that is going to bring us into then taking exam 3 right before we embark on Thanksgiving break. And when you come back again, you'll have those 2 large assignments that are going to be due. So again, my plea for you is that you hurry and at least get your thoughts together. So in case we need to touch base, if you want to make an appointment with me and we can go through the rubric and the different requirements for that course, we can do that before things get crazy at the end of the semester. So that being said, and you have 2 weeks, just wanted to give you a brief introduction, and I will pop back in next week to hit the death and dying aspect, but of the late adulthood. And this is including some of our cardinal things, such as retirement. We're going through the Erik's stage of ego integrity versus despair. This is the point in life when we look back and we want to know, we need that validation and that verification, confirmation that our life truly mattered and that we took time to not only advance ourselves, maybe in our family and our profession, but that we also invested in what comes behind us, be it people, resources. We want to know that our life truly mattered. This is when we have long-standing relationships, be it a spouse, it could be friendships, different things that we hold dearly. It could be a golf group, it could be a reading group, whatever that you have formed that was important and valued to you as you've transitioned through middle adulthood. As you hit late adulthood, those relationships become invaluable because you're going to be phasing out as you go through the stages of retirement. This individual is letting go of some things that have preoccupied a great deal of their time and attention. So relationships tend to kind of soar in meaning during this phase. This is also when knowing how important those relationships are, the loss, not only for the individual as we're going to get into next week, but losing those relationships. A lot of those relationships were formulated around work and professional aspects. And when we retire, sometimes individuals don't take that into account, that they're going to lose that social interaction. And thus it's important to stay connected for the individual that is going through retirement and phasing off of that scene, that they don't just phase out, but they just phase into something else and having those around them being supportive of them in those efforts. knowing the importance of the meaningful relationships at this stage, it's also very difficult when the individual in this stage loses a spouse or loses an important person in their group, wherever they are connected, whether it be a church group, different things. Loss becomes somewhat of a significant part or portion of their life. People are dealing with, maybe even if it's not death, but it's dealing with a spouse or a loved one with significant health concerns, or health concerns of yourself during this stage, and trying to manage that and what that looks like. It's been reported that as people go into retirement and they have this grandiose expectation of what retirement will look like, oftentimes that comes into a stage of, once the honeymoon stage is over, it becomes a portion where they feel like there's a loss there. There's actually a loss of purpose and passion. So it's important that they take the passion that once fueled that profession and put it into something else. And that may be a mentorship program, giving back in some way, or again, making sure that there's a hobby or something where there's a sense of routine, because there seems to be reported from studies that you can see on Harvey. I've included some. There is actually a sense of loss and grieving that routine that they've had for so many years, and being able to speak into that and connect. That's why I mentioned golf again, but that's just an activity that people can do on a routine basis, that they get up and they do it. Maybe you're on a tennis team, or you're in a reading or cooking club, whatever, but finding people with similar interests. And there seems to be a sense of community as well. If someone does go through the death and dying process, grief and loss of a spouse, knowing that there's a community of people in a similar circumstance or similar age groups and certain stages that can support them in that process. What we don't want as we're going through, and the goal is going to be integrity, that the ego integrity will be there and be intact. My life truly mattered. I made a difference, and I'm going to continue to make a difference, although I'm going to pivot slightly in retirement, and I'm going to pour into those that have come before, so that I can improve the future of things. And the future is bright, and although there are certain limitations as we go through all of 17, chapter 17, you're going to see is all of the aspects, the physiological aspects of how we age, the physical side of things of how we age. And although those are present, you can still live a very meaningful and fulfilling life as you pursue in staying active, both mentally and physically, and enjoy a very significant, robust late adulthood stage. What we don't want is the contrary, according to Erickson, and that is a state of despair. What's the point? Life didn't really matter, and it's all revolved. We see this a lot if there's been a couple that have been inseparable, and now all of a sudden that person has challenges that they're facing, then the spouse becomes a primary full-time caregiver for that individual. And then if there's loss of that individual, it takes a while for the remaining individual to be able to adapt and regroup, to have an identity independently. And many times there can be a shift into despair of, what's the point now? My significant other is gone. I don't want to live life alone, and there can be a state of despair there. There can also be a state of despair, as I've mentioned, when you retire and I only know myself as a teacher. I get up, I go to work, I plant, my schedule revolves around teaching because that's who I am and what I do. And when you retire, there can be that sense of, now what do I do? I raised kids and I was a teacher. Now my kids are raised and now I'm no longer teaching. And there can be that shift, a very uncomfortable shift of, you'll either pivot to the positive of, there's that integrity of, I know who I am as a person and had high qualities as a teacher. So now I'm going to take all that expertise and I'm going to pour into a group where I can volunteer and I can encourage teachers that are coming behind me because of that integrity, that ego integrity, to avoid that despair of what do I do now. It's not closing doors and it is no more, but it's just a shift. And helping the individual in late adulthood to realize that is critical for us if we can support him in that process. But we go into chapter 17, physiological, the physical aspects of aging. Chapters 18 is all the social dynamics of late adulthood. And then chapter 19, which I will hit next week, is all the process of death and dying, grief and loss, the stages of that. We will hit that next week separately. So you'll have 2 weeks to come up with. This is going to be one reflective paper on Erikson's ego integrity versus despair. That will be due 2 weeks from now, Sunday by midnight. And then that following week again, just to reiterate, is the final exam, which will be exam 3. And we drift off into Thanksgiving break. And when we come back, character presentation and the final reflective paper are both due at that point. So if you have any questions whatsoever, please reach out to me. If you have questions pertaining to any of the exams and you want to review those, you can make an appointment with me and we can do that as well. Remember those final 2 assignments that are coming on the horizon cannot be accepted late, and they are a little heavier. So if you haven't already started brainstorming, it's important that you do so, as well as if you have a question on character presentation. Will this work? Will this idea, can I transform this into a strong, robust project? Just email me, or better yet, come see me and we can connect. But take care and enjoy your week. Reach out if I can do anything for you.